For our last phase of our project, we need to implement the file open, and we've already got our code in, so I'm going to go look at our code for our form. And here's my file open. So right now all I have in it is updating the message text. This should be our last event method that needs to be created for our program. So yeah, I think we're almost done. For this one, we're going to use the file open dialog box, just like we did for the file save. So we're going to first make sure, let's see, it starts with the word open. We're going to make first sure that when we show that dialog, we get that dialog result of OK. So if we get a dialog result of OK, we know that we have a file name we can use. And we'll save that. Now for our open code, we're going to need to open that file and read through all of the rows that are in the file, and then insert each row into our list box, and then close the file. So we have a little bit more work to do with this open than we did with our save. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. So let's go ahead and create a method that's going to be the read our file. And this will just keep us consistent with our save. Plus, it's a nice logical division of responsibility. So I'll make this private void read our file. So we're going to allocate a stream reader as our input file. And it's going to be a new stream reader based on that file name. So right there, it's going to try to open that file. We will enclose that within a try, but we don't have that yet. Now, once our file is open, we need something to read each row into. So let's allocate a string for our input record. So we have our input file that's full of input records. So I'm going to read that first record. Oops, our input file. We want to read that line. And we saw that if we checked to make sure that our in record is not equal to a null, then we know we got some data there. So we've got some data. We need to format this data as a load and then put it into our list box. Remember, our list box is full of load objects. We don't just have these strings set up. So we're going to have to do some things to get that created. So I think that I'd like to do that within another method. We'll call it process record. Now, after we process a record, we're going to read another one. And that'll put us back to if. So we need that to be a while, don't we? I wanted to go back to it. So while our input record is not null, we're going to process that record and then read another one. Now, working on our read our file method, after we get back from processing that record, we should be ready to close our input file. And that'll put us in good shape. Now, because I'm doing file processing, I need to enclose this within a try. And I'll add a catch to say that any exception should be caught as an exception object exe, and we want to update our label message to show that exception message. I seem to not have a closing curly brace, so I'll add that in. And now my read our file method is complete. I just need to do something about this processing a record. So let's create that method. This method will be private and will be void. We're not going to return any values, but we are going to process this record that's just been read in. Now, when we're looking at this record, we probably need to have that record passed to us. So let's add that. We'll say, oh, I need a string called input. Now, when we read this from our file, I don't think I kept Notepad open, did I? Let's go find that again. Looking at my documents, at my load folder. This is what we're going to be reading in. So when I say read line, I'm going to get all this data. So I need a way to split it up, to make it not be all one big string, but make it be several different strings so that my fields are separate. Right now I have that separation in some spaces, so I could split based on spaces. So that's a super cool command that's available to us. I can say that I want to create an array of strings. This will be my split fields. And then I'm going to set my split fields equal to our input dot split. Now I don't have to pass a parameter because the separator character is a default of a space. So I can just run it like this, and that'll give me an output array called split fields with all of these different fields. I did it again. Just hard for me to leave Notepad open. All right, so that would give me this data in subscript 0 or index position 0 of my output array, this data in index position 1 of my output array, index position 2, etc. So we can see that data if we put in some sort of debugging code. What I'm going to do, I think, is just put a breakpoint here so that we can see how this works. Now at this point, I'm just going to run this, and I'm going to choose File, Open. My dialog box should display. I should be able to pick that file that we have just created, and when I pick that file, it should start trying to read it, and as I read it, it should process the record calling my split. So let's see how that works for us, if we can do some debugging. File, Open. I want to open load 1. And now I'm here to my split. Now my input values are right here in this variable string called input. My split fields right now is an empty string array. So I'm going to execute and step into that line of code. And now let's see what our split fields looks like. Now our array has 5 entries. And voila, we have the first field, second field, third field, fourth field, fifth field. Awesome. So it's split just perfect. Let's stop. And I'm going to take that breakpoint off because that is working great. So in my split now, I can go ahead and create an instance of our load. Well, we have one, don't we? What is that called? Load instance. We're going to say that we're going to have a new one for this record, and then we want to set all of our load fields equal to our split fields array appropriate entry. So 0 should be our name field. I cannot keep that open, is beyond me. Next is our code, that's our gravel type. So we want to set that type of gravel equal to type of gravel toString, and we want to pass it our split fields item number 1. Now it's complaining to us, isn't it, because our split fields are a string and our type of gravel is supposed to be a char data type. So let's see if we can cast that. Can let us? No. So what do we have to do? We have to convert it, right? So I can convert to char my split fields. Let's fix that a little bit so we can see it better. It says I can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. Let's see. We're just going to have to do this a little bit better, aren't we? Can we do it? Oh my goodness, so many different ways. Sometimes it's just not easy to figure out which way we want to do it. We'll say to char array. How's that? Now that's going to get mad at us because it's like, I can't do that because you've got too much stuff here. Well, can you do it if I only use the first character? It's still complaining on us. I tell you this, our gravel type has been a real pain, hasn't it? Let's go ahead and set up another variable. And we'll say that our gravel type equals our split fields number 1 at position 0 with a semicolon outside the parentheses. So it's taking that and saying, oh, okay, I can convert that to a char. So now we should be able to use our gravel type variable in our call. But I made you a char. Always pain, huh? Our gravel type is a char, you silly thing. How about we use a cast now that we've got it down to 1 character. Okay, so it takes that here. Remove unnecessary cast. Okay. I'm tired of our gravel. Let's comment that out just for a moment so that we can continue on and we'll do some research. Okay, so we are setting up our load instance. So I'm going to next grab our weight in pounds. And we know that we need to convert that to an integer. And it's going to be split fields number 1, subscript 0, 1, 2. Let's double check. I actually did not close it. 0, 1, 2. Then we want our weight in ounces. To be the 3rd index entry. And then lastly, our location is going to be item number 4. Now that we've got our data pulled out of the record, we can process that record. We can add it to our list box items. So we have some work to do on our gravel type problem there, but we're going to try to do some testing first before we worry too much about that, getting those little details. So as we process our record, we're going to split the data out into individual fields, create the instance of that load method or load instance, and add that to our list box. Put some comments here. For our read our file method. And finally, we have our file open that we'll be clicking on in the very first place. So we can leave our message being updated there. I'll do a string.format, and I'll say file has been opened. Type right. Now I have a couple questions for you. When we open a file, do we want the data that's already in the list box to stay there, or do we want to clear it? That's one. I think that's the only one. Let's start here. Okay, so I should be able to actually do a file open now. Open my load, and I've got something there, but I don't think that it's my first record, do you? Oh, well, look. It sort of is, but I don't have record 2. Let me close this. way back up to the top here. So we picked a file name, and we went into our read our file. In our read our file, we open it, we read the first line. If our input record is not equal null, we process it, and then we read another one. So I don't know why we're only getting one record processed. When we write out our records, we're using a write line command. So we should be able to read them properly with a read line. I'm going to have to set a breakpoint. We'll do that right here on our while loop as we're reading our file. Open, choose our file. Now our input record is not null. We have our first record. So I'm going to step into, I'm going to process that record. I'm going to split everything. Now when I get this message, it means that it's going into my class to run the properties, and I'm going to say yes, I want to keep being informed of that. So you could step through that if you changed an option. Now here we're seeing our data get put into our object, hence it telling us it's stepping over our getters. And finally, I'm going to add that to our list. It runs our toString method of our class, adds that to our list box, and then comes back, reads another record. Now our new record has some data. It's not null. Continue on. Process it. Our new record is split properly. Ran our constructor there of our class, and it set that load type to A, which is our default. Interesting, huh? Now, what happened there? We didn't do anything with it. We created our new load, but then it didn't seem to actually add it to our list. Let's follow through. So it looked like it should have worked. I'm going to go back and run it again. Stop, run, open. Sorry if that's deafening to you. Adding it to our list box. Now, our next record, again, process it, create our new load, go to our load class and run our constructor, come back. Now, split up our fields, Sorry about that. Can I make it stop? Continue. It seems to be doing all the things it's supposed to be doing. So right there it jumped to an exception. And our exception wasn't processed because in our file open, we update that label. So let me stop here and comment that out so we can see what that message is. I'm going to turn off this breakpoint so I don't deafen you. Input string was not in a correct format. So it was whenever we started with one of our inputs there. Well, there's our problem, isn't it? Because we're splitting on spaces, it didn't allocate our fields correctly, did it? Because it said record was our first field and then 2, and that's not correct. 2 is actually part of this name. So since we can have spaces in the name, we need to do something a little bit differently. Now, this is going to mean that we need to do something differently in a lot of places. So let's close this and think about it. When we actually use our load class, our toString method is outputting this data for us, and we're using that to directly input into our list box. We're also using that to directly input into our file. So we're using the same toString method. We have a lot of choices. We could create a new toString, then use it like if we're outputting a file, and use this one if we're outputting to something else. So that's an option. Or we could update this one. So let's update this one. Instead of just putting a space between our different fields, let's add a comma. Now we're going to create a file that has comma separated values. So first thing I'm going to do is go delete this file because it's no good now. I don't want to accidentally be trying to use it. Now I'm going to run my program, and I'm going to add an entry. And now we see those commas in between our entries. Maybe not too bad, maybe that's okay. All right, so now we've got a couple of entries here. We see that we have our different entries separated by comma, comma delimited. So now let's save them. Because we haven't saved before, the Save As dialog box displays, and we can call this load data, and it was saved for us. Now let's read it in. Input string was not in the correct format. Still, huh? Oh, you know what? We didn't change. Duh. Let's go to our read process. And when we do that split, we want to split based on a comma, right? I think it wants that to be a char. Let's see. There we go. So split it based on a comma. So I have my file saved. Can open it. And now we're all in good shape because our commas are separating things correctly and not getting us confused about our spaces. So again, we could eliminate those commas and do some formatting if we wanted to on this output for this list box. But for now, we're okay. All right, so everything looks good there. Now if I open that file again, I'm going to double up that data and continue to do so. That's fine, but I would need to have some sort of clear button or something for that. So I would say that might be something that you want to look at. I'm going to stop this run. So the only thing then that's being a big problem for us is reading this type of value or type of gravel item from our file. So let's take a look at how we can handle that. I'll use the help facility. When you use the help facility in Microsoft Visual Studio, you can actually set it up to copy all of the help files down to your local hard drive so that you don't need an internet connection. By default, it'll just pull help off the internet. And I've been just using Google, but we have this awesome Visual Studio help available to us. So how can I convert a string to a char? And I really want to search a language, you silly thing. This is why I never use their help. I want to search C#. There it is. And I want to search for converting a string to a char. I'm searching for C# and I've got all this Visual Basic stuff. Not helping me at all. How about you? Didn't see a thing, so I'm going to search. What's weird is we had it working. So here we're looking at that split method. That's what we're trying to use. So convert to char, always use the first character in the string. Well, that's what we would like. So let me uncomment that again and say that we just want to convert to char that split field item, and then we want to call our type of gravel to string. Actually, we don't, do we? We just want to display that char character properly. So now that we've got it converted, we should be okay. So will it let us do that? Sometimes it's very picky, and I knew we were really close, and we just about had it there. So instead of all of that rigmarole, we could just do convert.toChar on the string that we're concerned with. Since it's only the one digit that we want, that's going to be what we'll end up with. So that should take care of that issue. Let's make sure. Into File Open, Load Data. String must be exactly one character long. Okay. I'll put it all back. How's that? It is. I don't know why it's being so mean to us. Probably one of those things that you can see and you're just yelling at me. I wish I could hear you. There it goes. It's happy now. It's got nothing there. Nothing, nothing. Let's look at our file. And I do have something there. Set a breakpoint again. So let's look at our split fields. So, oh look, we have a space in front of it. Doy, that's because we changed things to that comma space, isn't it? So I could actually go to character 1. Let's see if that fixes us up better. Now notice how we're getting so detail oriented into how we wrote this data out. That's why as a programmer we have to be concerned about those details. Everything looks great now. Now I've got my gravel type coming through. Glad we persisted and did not give up. Now a lot of things could be improved in our application. This is fine, it meets the specifications, but as a beginning programmer, it's important for you to, of course, always be striving to learn new things. Look at those common dialog controls. How could we improve things for our file open and our file save? Are there other things that we need to be doing differently? Let's close out, and I'm going to go up to the top of our form code and make sure that all our commenting is in place. I guess I want to enable that message that we commented out for debugging. Notice that the debugger is our best way of debugging because then we don't have to necessarily update code that can be, forgotten. Our process record, then our file save as, our call of the save dialog, the method that we use to actually save the data from the list box. So all of that was our file maintenance stuff. Then we have our exit the application, our add new. Remember we created early on these methods to help us, our helper methods, enable, disable, and clear form. We had our update and delete to go along with our add. And then in our help about, we might need to come back and fix that up a little bit. We have our OK button. Ooh, it appears that I have forgotten to comment there. So we're going to process that click. We have our update list and our add to list, which are very similar. And it's good programmer, of course, you're going to try to combine those into one method. Finally, our type of gravel toString, a little clumsy, but we got it to work. And our list box click event. So everything looks really good. It looks like we've commented everything. We have all of the information that we need for our program. Now, I should have checked it in a long time ago into TFS to keep a backup copy, and I can tell you as I've been making videos, it would have been really good of me if I would have done that, because then I would be able to go back to the version that was at the end of each video, so that when I messed up, I wouldn't have to kind of try to get back to that spot. But better late than never, so I'll go ahead and check it in. Yeah, I want to save changes to everything first. This is going to be my Gravel Load Manager initial check-in, and probably done too, huh? Click the button. Yes. Now, the only thing that I mentioned that we might want to work on is our help about. Let's take a quick look at that. I want you to think about things that are available to you. And it says right now that this message box is just going to show help about our app. So let's fix this a little bit. Let's say that we want to start out with a message string. And that way we can build this. So we're going to set our message string equal to now after that I want a new line and some more. So I want to say something like maybe a couple tabs. That looks good. So now I want in my message box to display that message string first. And then after that, if I look at the overloads that I see from IntelliSense, I see that I have a lot. I want a caption. So I'll leave that. Help about our app. I think that sounds fine. And then can I do some buttons? I want some buttons. Message box buttons. Which buttons would I like? I would just like the OK button. Now that's going to make our message box much fancier than it was. Let's run it and see. Help about. There it is. Gravel Load Manager app. And I maybe want my version 1.0 to be just one tab because it wouldn't look too bad that way. It looks pretty good and it says OK. So again, a little bit, some fun, neato stuff that you can play with in C# and get your applications to be really awesome. So good luck. That's the end. It's the last of our videos. Good luck with the final. Let me know if I can help. Have a great rest of the summer.